everyone, it is I, Scarred Hero, and welcome to episode 6 of the weekly Yozakura podcast. This week we'll be talking about chapter 165 of Mission Yozakura Family, Asa. This chapter gives us some backstory on Asa, the main villain who was introduced in the last arc, and he seems to blow the other villains out of the water in terms of creepiness, because we've had Momo, who was obviously insane, and now we have Asa, who is even creepier. To open up the chapter, we start with a color page which shows the top 3 results for the best pair popularity poll that Mission Yozakura Family did for its 3rd anniversary. They had like a special website open, and you could vote for your like favorite pair of characters every day. And every single day that I remember, I voted for Taiyo and Kyoichiro, because as I've mentioned before, I really love their dynamic and how they interact with each other and how they thematically play off of each other, and I just really love them as a duo. But the winners of the popularity poll were, of course, Taiyo and Mutsumi, the primary couple of this series. They won with 2,364 votes. In second place with 1,959 votes were Shion and Kingo, and with third place with 1,342 votes was Kyoichiro and Kai. Now, Shion and Kingo probably got second place because they're just very popular characters. In the last popularity poll, it was just like a normal popularity poll, and I believe that Shion was first place, Kingo was second place, and Taiyo was third place. So it makes sense for the two most popular characters in the series to do well in this poll. And then we have Kyoichiro and Kai, which is kind of like unexpected, because I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense, but it's like if I had to predict the results of the poll beforehand, I wouldn't have guessed Kyoichiro and Kai, because Kai is a very new character. He was introduced relatively recently, and Kyoichiro, I think Kyoichiro's popularity definitely shot up due to the Kyoichiro disappearance arc and him kind of having a lot more focus ever since. And Kai's a very likable person, and he has this dynamic with Kyoichiro that's just pretty interesting. They're childhood friends and almost parallel Taiyo and Mutsumi a lot, so it's a deserving win for them. But like on the color page, everyone's like has their comment, and Kyoichiro salty saying, "This is rigged, Mutsumi and I deserve to win." And that's kind of how I feel, except instead of Kyoichiro and Mutsumi, I think Kyoichiro and Taiyo should have won. But they released like the full results of the poll online, and Taiyo and Kyoichiro ended up getting 6th place, so it's all's good, I guess. So now let's get into the actual content of the chapter. Wait. So before I actually get into like the content of the chapter, there is one more thing I did notice about the color page, and that was Taiyo's design. I think is it just me, or is he starting to look more like his anime design that we see on the key visual? Because when that key visual for the Mission Yozakura Family anime was first revealed, a lot of like the first, like people's first thoughts on it were how that Taiyo's hair seems more curly in that key visual, rather than spiky, which it had been recently. But in this color page, and actually throughout like the art of this entire chapter, Taiyo's hair appears to be more curly. It's less like spiky, it's more almost defined, and it just looks more like how it does in the anime, which is nice, because I really enjoy that consistency. And if that's the case, I'd imagine Hitsuji Gandaira is aware of the anime design, so maybe how the characters look everywhere else is, well, with the exception of Kai, because he probably won't be introduced until way later, but maybe like these are pretty similar to the character designs we'll be getting in the anime. I don't know, but very exciting regardless. I'm definitely looking forward to the anime. So like I said, let's get into the actual content of this chapter, which was very good. So we see Asa arrive with snacks for the Yozakura family, which is pretty insane considering that the Yozakura family knows that, or the 10th generation knows that Asa will kill them eventually. He plans to. But he's met with immediate hostility from Kyoichiro, who sets up like this grid shield with Steel Spider, and if Asa comes into contact with it, he'll be disintegrated. So the Yozakura family, or I should stop saying Yozakura, I should start saying the 10th generation, because this is a matter that involves like the entire extended Yozakura family. So the 10th generation, they confront Asa about what they found and his research data that basically admits it's proof that Asa is targeting them. So Kyoichiro asks, "Who are you, and what do you do, and what do you intend to do with the Yozakura family?" And then Asa's like, "Well, the plan was to reveal all to you in a few years once you've matured, but I suppose it's best to tell you." And my boy Asa, or I shouldn't say my boy because this guy is messed up, but Asa goes into a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure-esque monologue, and I thought it was pretty funny. There's this panel, and it reminds me of like the beginning of Yoshikage Kira's speech from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4, and he's like, "I am Asa. I'm a normal, utterly remarkable," I keep messing things up. "I'm a normal, utterly unremarkable human being. Though, if I had to say there was anything special about me," and here's the big reveal, "it's that I am Tsubomi Yozakura's father." And this is what I predicted, I'm pretty sure, in a previous episode of this podcast. I originally thought that Asa was Tsubomi's husband, but then based on last chapter where Asa shows up and basically demands this childlike Tsubomi to come along with him, I figured since he kind of asserts like dominance over Tsubomi, I figured it was more likely that he is Tsubomi's father. And we have that confirmation in this chapter. And the 10th generation is shocked about this revelation, and this leads Asa to go into backstory mode, where he explains Tsubomi's childhood and his relationship with Tsubomi, which we soon find is very messed up. Basically, Tsubomi was viewed as like this child of God who was able to heal people with ease. All she had to do was hold out her hand and wounds would heal. Disease was cured, even withered flowers sprung back to life. So, instead, all the villages we visited worshipped her as a child of the gods. So again, like I said, she's being recognized as this amazing child with powers that could only be described as godlike. And Asa her father is just a normal man. I also find the usage of the word normal to be very interesting, because normal is a word that appears, it repeats a lot over the course of the entire series. And I think it most certainly applies to our protagonist Taiyo Sano. I think one of the most defining moments for him in the series was during his fight with Yuki Shirai, or White Snake, and where he has this flashback to where his family was alive, and he kind of reaffirms his goals and his drive to protect the family, and he says, "I will protect this new normal I have with Mutsumi and the family." And even before that, during the whole backstory, he was just talking about his normal everyday life with his family. And then with the inclusion of slice of life chapters in the series that we get so often, it seems that the series really likes to drive for this theme of appreciating the little things in life and the normal everyday realities that you spend with your loved ones. And so to see Asa kind of be the one to bring this up again, calling himself normal, this is the first, well, I guess Kawashita, in a way, he was normal before he got involved with the Yozakura family, but, well, debatable. But Asa, like, he just straight up says, like, hey, I'm this normal, unremarkable guy. The only thing special about me is my relationship with Tsubomi Yozakura, because she's my daughter, and that my association with her is what is the only thing that makes me anything special. And that's kind of, the same could be said about Tayo. He was just a normal, average kid until he, married into the Yozakura family. So that right there already establishes a sort of parallel between our antagonist and our protagonist. So, continuing with Asa's backstory, we learned that he is a doctor of sorts. He talked about studying the Dutch arts, which is simply called medicine these days, and he wanted to fight starvation and disease the way that his daughter could, but he was unable to. And he says, it was then that I realized my daughter, who her mother had given her life to bear, truly was a gift to me from the gods. Simply touring villages wasn't enough. My child and her powers, she could help so many more people in another way. More. So many more. And then we see a very disturbing, grotesque panel with Asa crouching over Tsubomi's sleeping body, and just like you see all these surgical tools all around her, and he is dismembering her as if she were a machine. And then he says, though she did not feel pain, any gashes or even severed limbs healed by the next morning, I could examine her to my heart's content. And this panel right there, it quickly changed my opinion of Asa, because when he shows up with snacks and talks about how he wants to avoid needless misunderstanding and conflict, I figured, well, okay, this guy can't be that bad, but of course, subversion of expectations, we didn't have that immediate juxtaposition, and we just see Asa straight up just performing experiments on his daughter's body, and it's just very dark. And it's crazy how this series can be so lighthearted and so insanely grotesque at the same time, and I kind of love it. And we go from that dark panel with Asa experimenting with Tsubomi's body, and we see the next page, it's just this sweet panel with a child Tsubomi just standing there, and the difference between that panel and the text on that panel is insane. So we see this lovely picture with Tsubomi, a child Tsubomi, smiling, and then here's what the dialogue in that panel says. Asa's her hair and nails steeped into a tea could cure disease. Powder from her crushed finger bones provided the strength of 100 men. Her arm could give limbs back to those who'd lost theirs in battle. One of her eyeballs, brewed into a potion, could bring sight back to thousands, and a sliver of her heart could grant 100 years of life. She truly was a child of the gods. And then we see Tayo and Mutsumi's live reaction, and oh my, their face is pretty accurate to how I'd imagine readers felt when just reading those two pages, because it's just insane. He's casually talking about how he used his daughter as a tool, And that's kind of how he sees the Yozakura family now. We mentioned, like, when he showed up to take Momo during, like, his first appearance, we see him say, like, he's using the Yozakura family for the good of the world. But he doesn't see the Yozakura family themselves as people. He sees them as tools that can be used for everyone else in the world. And that is just not... It's actually very interesting and a great contrast to Momo, the previous main antagonist of the series, because we saw how Momo was like draining the trace amounts of summoning in like innocent people. So with Momo, innocent lives were being taken in order to restore the glory of the Yozakura family. But with Asa, it's the Yozakura family that's being cruelly treated for the purpose of strengthening the rest of the world. And I think that's a very interesting concept. I love it. Like, these villains are total opposite ends of the spectrum. They're so similar yet so different, and it's just very good writing in my opinion. So that's when Asa finishes his like dialogue talking about the birth of the Yozakura family, and then we see Kyoichiro chime in talking about how Asa's name was like in code names from, or actually he said that bit earlier in the chapter, but what he does is he confronts Asa on his decision to hide his existence, because no one knew about Asa besides Rei and Momo, who had their suspicions and were trying to lure him out of the shadows. But besides that, Asa has manipulated the Yozakura family from the shadows for like 300 years now. And then we see Asa admit to more heinous crimes. He was like, "I'm merely the stagehand who supports the world through Tsubomi's powers. I desire neither fame nor wealth. I erased my existence so I could watch over you from the shadows. If there was need, I sent others to help in my stead. One time, I sent a boy named Kawashita to look over things. I offered a clone named Momo to the knife head as husband." And this is our confirmation right here that Asa is the penultimate villain of the series, because if we divide this story into sagas, we have the Tampopo saga, which was about the Yozakura family's conflict with Tampopo, who was led by Kawashita. And then we have the Momo conflict, where we were dealing with Momo, the father of the Yozakura family. And so seeing that Asa is the one who directly set up Kawashita's involvement in this whole story, and as well as practically birthed Momo, because as we know, Momo is like a clone of Tsubomi, and this is where he admits, like, yeah, I cloned Tsubomi, and that's Momo, that's your dad, which is gross to think about, but like, this Asa guy really is awful. So then we see like Taiyo, like his reaction to all of this, and Asa's like, "I planned only to watch over you all, but then an anomaly occurred. The knife head and her husband plotted rebellion against me. Together, she and Momo plotted to destroy everything. Momo's insanity, Tsubomi's growing weakness. In order to quell the chaos, I had little choice but to step out of the shadows." I think it's kind of funny how Asa has like the audacity to call Momo insane. It's just kind of funny. It's like, dude, practice what you preach. But I mean, yeah, Momo is definitely insane, but Asa is also insane in his own way. So yeah, and then we see like this another very menacing panel with Asa, and he says, "Momo and Rei's rebellion was successfully quashed and Tsubomi was revitalized. The Yozakura family is slowly returning to the shape which it belongs. But it won't do to repeat the mistakes of the past. This time, I will stand in the open and officially manage the Yozakura family." Which is... okay, so I don't know why, but like, well, I do know why. I will explain. But this single panel is so eerie and scary, because not only does Asa just look terrifying, But what he, like, if you think about what he says, he comes out here like a dictator. Like, he is going to control the family. He says he's been controlling from the shadows all this time, but now that he's here and he's out of the shadows, like, he's directly saying, he's like, look guys, I'm handling you guys now. You're under my control. And it's just a very creepy feeling that, and we know he has the power to do so. He's just outright saying that I am going to control you guys, and that's just terrifying. So then Asa elaborates on the how the Yozakura family isn't ripe yet, and we get some more interesting information on that, like more specifics. He says that Tsubomi's descendants reach peak summoning maturity in their early 20s at the soonest. So that's why they need to wait, because right now the youngest member of the Yozakura family is Nanio, who is 16 at the time of this chapter, and he says in another 4 to 5 years, and with like the website saying 5 to 6 years, I'm assuming we're getting like a 5-year time skip. So in 5 years, Nanio will be 21, which is near the peak of summoning maturity, and then we have Tayo and Mutsumi will be 22. So I'm blanking on who's next. Kengo would be 23. Shion would be 24. Shinzo would be 25. Futaba would be 26, and Kyoichiro would be 27. So yeah, 5 years. In another 4 to 5 years, you will reach your peak strength and potency. I will return at that time to retrieve you. And then he's like, the Yozakura family's power is one that I've honed for centuries for the good of the world. You have a duty to give back to the world for what it's given to you. Resistance is futile. And maybe I'm overthinking things here, but I always like to look for like hidden themes in series manga that I'm reading, and especially Mission Yozakura Family, because I enjoy it so much. But what if this like this is all like a metaphor for like growing up, because like in this world, you know, we're in order to support yourself, you have to like, you know, work and in a way give back to the world for what it's given to you, even though, as we know, the world doesn't treat most people very kindly, and it certainly hasn't treated the Yozakura family very kindly, but they're still expected to serve the world rather than themselves. But that's just a tangent that I thought of. And so again, like, and we see like a shot with like how all of the like the 10th generation, they all look like very like disturbed at this. And then Asa continues like, but I apologize for rambling, and demands that the 10th generation gives Tsubomi up. So then Tayo's like, Kawashita, Mutsumi's parents, even my family, everything is this man's fault. Which is again like directly telling the reader like, this dude has been the mastermind all along. He is the primary antagonist for the series. And then I kind of like what we see next is Futaba being like, he rambled on for so long my shoulders got stiff. And then each member of the family has like a quip to say, reacting to either what someone else has said or like the fact that Asa just went on, and they pretty much ignore how messed up what he revealed is. Like, they just ignore it and move on, and they know what they have to do. They need to get rid of Asa. So and the chapter ends with a very gorgeous final page of the Yozakura family basically squaring up to attack Asa. This final spread that we get at the end of this chapter reminds me a lot of when like they first kind of fought Momo, because like Tayo was there trying to talk to Kawashita, and get some background information on Tsubomi, and that's when Momo showed up to like try to stop him, and like we see a similar panel to that where like the Yozakura family just squares up getting ready to fight Momo, and that's kind of what we see with like Asa here, and it again points to what I predicted last episode of this podcast, and like the 10th generation is about to be mobbed, absolutely demolished. There is no way they can beat Asa, because we've seen Kyoichiro use his strongest ability. Kyoichiro is the strongest member of the family, and Asa was able to easily negate that. So I think next chapter is going to be like the fight between Asa and the 10th generation, and he's going to absolutely wipe the floor with them, on the verge of death, but like not dead, because he needs to use them for his whatever his ultimate goal is. And I'm kind of looking forward to it, because like fight very hype, meathead shonen go burr but like I'm just so like excited. And the time skip again, I keep talking about this time skip. They've been hammering the future, they've been hammering these the 5 years into maturity, into where I can't speak and hammering this idea that Asa won't need the Yozakura family for another 5 years. So like I'm expecting that they're about to get their rude awakening, that they're not strong enough to beat Asa, and they'll use these 5 years until they reach maturity to get stronger. So by the time the time skip rolls around, they're strong enough to stand a fighting chance against him. So things are going pretty much how I expected so far with this chapter. That's not a bad thing though. It was a very good read. The art was very good, and it really hammered in the disturbing factor with Asa's Tsubomi's backstory, because Tsubomi's kind of the one we feel pity for. Asa, we just see him as like, dude, you suck. But phenomenal chapter. I can't wait to see the 10th generation get their butts kicked next chapter, and hopefully everyone looks forward to that, as well as next week's episode of the Weekly Yozakura Podcast. Thank you all for listening. I'm your host, Scarred Hero, and until next time.